Hi, folks. Welcome back to the Leeds View for our second podcast of this week and our first Transfer Talk podcast of the winter transfer window as we're into the new year of 2026. And some of our rivals have already started to get their skates on when it comes to bringing players in. Leeds will be, as we all know, probably slightly slower to do business, but hopefully we'll get the bulk of it done before we get to deadline day. There's not a huge amount to be done. Daniel Farke has given some little hints of some business, but we're going to talk to Andrea Russo about the transfer rumors so far. And they are all rumors, so it's all speculation. We're not saying anything's actually real at this point, just to have a discussion around it. If you are listening on the audio platforms, if you could give us a star rating as well as stick a comment, that would be fantastic. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you could like, hype, and subscribe to the channel as we head towards 80,000 subscribers, that would be massively appreciated. We'll check in with Andrea first just to see how his festive period has gone. It's been a while since we've chatted to him. So, Andrea, first things first, thanks for joining us on the show. And how's your Christmas been?
First and foremost, Stuart, thanks for the invitation. It's good to be back to chat with you. It's been a good period, yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, because Leeds had a good run of results, but personally, yeah, a good period to have some rest, watch some movies, have some long walks, because I'm not back till next week to work. So if I don't work or enjoy my vacations now, when do I do that? The time is now. So yeah, and Leeds have made this period very good, with the results and this good run of form and performances and a new mentality after that infamous now Man City game. So it's good to see. Yeah. Like yesterday, I typed after the game. I usually do a thread after the game when I write down my thoughts after the game, and I said we can call this group now a Leeds United-minded group. That's the famous quote from Don Revie, if everybody is Leeds United-minded, then we should get somewhere. Right now, finally, we're seeing that, and it's really refreshing, and it's really something to be proud of, under this period. And I hope that the period has been as good as it has been for me, for you, yeah.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, Leeds make it a hell of a lot easier to enjoy your Christmas when they're doing well. Ton of draws, but it's great. They needed to clock up the draws. They've got some big wins as well. We've obviously got Manchester United on Sunday, which will be a very interesting game. And I think we were doing the news this morning, and it's 8,000 and something minutes or days or something since Leeds United beat Manchester United in a game in the Premier League. So it would be great if we could get that. I think it's probably our best chance to do something against them. But the unbeaten run of 6 games, considering the teams we had to play against, and again, as you point out, that turnaround since the second half and the change of system and the change of approach, more importantly than even the system, for Leeds. But they are very much a Leeds-minded squad. There's a workmanlike attitude to this side, and they're all pushing in the right direction. So yeah, it's been great, and it's made Christmas and the New Year far more palatable and nicer to just be able to relax and enjoy it. So yeah, no doubt the defeats will come at some point. We're not losing the run of ourselves, but for right now, let's enjoy as I say, enjoy the sun, and we'll see where we go in the rest of the season. But we are here to talk about transfers, Andrea. Before we get into the individual players, just to give some backstory on this as well, Daniel Farke does like to leave little breadcrumbs in his press conferences, if you like to read between the lines. And he's said over a couple of weeks now, little bits and pieces, didn't want to talk about transfers until the beginning of January, which suggested that there may be something because he didn't rule them out at all. And then last night, or what's going out today as his pre-press conference for Manchester United, he has said that there's not a massive turnaround of players expected, but that does suggest there is some turnaround of players expected. And he said that the people behind the scenes in the club are making their preparations, and if they can get a solution to some areas of the Leeds team, if they're available at the right price and the right deals, then they'll look to try and get them done. But he said nothing for 10 days. So as per usual, we can look forward to around the middle of the month, but hopefully Leeds get their business done early. Andrea, just for you first, how important do you feel it is for Leeds, A, to do some business in this January window? Because historically, the 49ers don't like doing anything in January.
Yeah.
And secondly, how important is it to get it done early?
Well, I think it's mandatory. It's necessary to do some business during this window, especially after the change and switch to the formation at Man City. With the back three, the full backs transform into wing backs. We know how demanding now this new approach is. So Goodmanson and Bogle get absolutely overworked every single game because they leave everything on the pitch. And it's mandatory that now we have James Justin on the right, for example, for Bogle. He had a great game at Liverpool, got award, even the Man of the Match award. But on the left, we have Sam Byram. I really like the player. I like the individual even more, because he's leads through and through. His influence, like it was the case for Liam Cooper, all these players, is necessary behind the scenes to transfer what being Leeds United means, and the experience of veterans, But it's mandatory for me that we do some business, and I think a wing back, probably a left-footed one, to give some rest to Gudmundsson, to give some alternative to Gudmundsson is a priority for me, because now we have Justin, like I said, on the right. But I still think we need one very similar to Gudmundsson on the left, because in Italy 3-5-2, 3-4-2-1 is one of the most common formations. And I look at the likes of Atalanta or even Fiorentina, who are now having a very bad season, but historically even Inter Milan, all these teams, and even Juve, even Juventus, AC Milan at some point too. All of these clubs have played historically in recent times with a back three, and all of them have like four wing backs, four big backs that can challenge and be starting in the side. So for me, it is mandatory, that one, along with the centre back, because we are really, really short, I think. And down there, Bornau obviously got injured. Apparently now it's some just cramps. Hopefully, I really hope, because otherwise we won't have any other centre back. I even typed on Twitter. I suggested, like, if Bornau doesn't recover in time for Man United, with the problem that he had that forced him to go away, I think we need to consider because we won't have any other centre back. I think we need to consider to bring Johnny Housen on the bench, because he's registered, because and he played 21 games last season. So in emergency, even James Justin played in a back three in emergency at Leicester. But yeah, on your other one, I think is probably the timestamp. The mid-January one is referred to the fact that probably we will try to do some exits before bringing in some players, because of course you see that Jack Harrison is linked with the move with Valencia for PSR, exactly. The other links, to other players. So that's the other one. I would like to see probably a centre back coming in very early, because of our crisis at the back, especially with Joe Rodon. Joe Rodon is massive. Bornau did very well at Liverpool, but it was playing in a different way compared to Rodon, of course, because he's more comparable for me to Yakabiol. He's a player used because of his age. He's less physical, of course, compared to Biol. But he usually been the middle one in a back three. And he cannot progress a lot with the ball like Rodon does, or carrying the ball in that sense, on the right. So I think we need one, and the one link, the Danilo Doki, will be a good one for me.
Yeah, we'll start with the names that have been linked. We're going to write off a couple before we get into the kind of more credible ones. We always try and do that, rather than just put out tons of names and say Leeds are after all these players. We will give you the players they've been linked with by various different publications. There's ones that we haven't covered. There's like the likes of Nathan Aki comes from an incredibly uncredible source, so we're not even talking about that. But we'll clarify a couple of links that have happened already this month. Brennan Johnson was linked with Leeds early in the month, December, sorry. He's gone to Crystal Palace now. That looks done and dusted for £35 million. James McAtee has been a consistent link, and it does look more likely that Forest are going to allow him to go to Strasbourg. Potentially, that could be a loan with an option there. Not confirmed, but it does look like the more likely direction. There's interest in Germany in him as well. From a Leeds perspective, Danny Namasso from Porto, who's on loan at Auxerre, was linked with Leeds. That's come back out in the last few days to be said to be mostly agent talk. He's trying to drum up interest in his client while he's at AFCON. And then there's a Ruben Neves one is a bit wild. There's 6 months left on his deal. I think that's possibly where that's coming from, and he wants to leave. So I would be shocked if that happens, because there will be a fee needed to try and get that one done. Leeds are working off a pretty tight budget. So they're the ones we can probably run out. Castellanos is the one to talk about, though, because Andrea, you would know an awful lot more about Tati Castellanos. Plays for Lazio. Not a great Lazio side, to be said, right now, currently sitting around mid-table in Serie A. £27 million he's gone to West Ham United for. Leeds were linked with him. He's got one goal since August. Have we dodged a bullet on this one, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you because I've been watching. I've been a fan of him. When he signed for Lazio because he had a good campaign at Girona. Of course, he was
Mm,
involved in the. He was one of the City Group players because
yeah.
Girona got him from New York City FC. So both clubs are part of the City Football Group. Then he moved to Girona, had a good campaign, and Lazio decided to sign him. In the first season, 2 years ago, he was an understudy to Ciro Immobile.
Mm,
Didn't got many opportunities, but showed good signs, for the future under Sarri. Then Sarri left. They brought in Igor Tudor as manager. Then last season they had Marco Baroni, was now moved at the start of the season to Torino. But yeah, this season and last season after Immobile moved to Besiktas, he became the starter, of course, in the number 9 position. He's a versatile 9. He's a nine sacrificing a lot off the ball. The problem
yeah.
is that the majority of his goals come from headers or opportunities, chances in the box. He's not a very. It doesn't have a lot of vision, or when he has space, he doesn't shoot often.
Mm,
So, and he's not very physical. He's a fighter because all Argentinian strikers, that capability to
nibble.
fight for the ball, to sacrifice. Yeah, exactly. That,
Yeah.
the great one for me always was Batistuta. In that sense, that player fighting for every possession, every ball. The one with Castellanos, like you pointed out, Jer, is that he's also injury prone. He's had a
Yeah.
lot
He's a
of
lot.
injuries, and at this time in Lazio, at the start of the season, he started and got injured, and Boulaye Dia became the starter. Now he's back, but he's playing uh, moments, not consistently in games. So I think Lazio have hit the jackpot with 30 million euros, 27 million
It's a lot
pounds,
of money.
honestly, because they needed that money, because at the start of the season they had their transfer window blocked in
Mm,
Italy, and by UEFA, of course, too, because they didn't respect some financial rules in Italy, so cannot do any transfer activity. So there
mm,
were rumors in January that Sunderland wanted to offer 30 million for Guendouzi, West Ham 30 million euros for Castellanos. Now that they've sold Castellanos, I think Guendouzi will stay, and with the money that they got with Castellano, now they have the also 2 weeks ago they have unblocked the transfer block,
yeah.
the transfer ban. Now they can operate too, and with the 30 million euros that they have now, they can do some business in general in order to get some signings for the squad. But I think, yeah, I could see him. I was talking to Loki. I like 2 weeks ago, so I could see him going to West Ham. Because I think
Yeah.
West Ham are willing, with the situation they're in. They have a different transfer approach compared to us. They're willing to overspend or to get some huge salaries. Like, for example, another link was Raheem Sterling for them.
Mm,
Another one that has a huge salary. Castellanos 30 million. He will need time. I like the player. I think he will adapt eventually to the Premier League. He can do well in the Premier League, but it will take time for him. And West Ham right now, they don't have time, of course, because they've been playing with Paqueta. Takalo Wilson return, of course, early in the season, but they've played with Paqueta as a false nine for the majority
mm.
of the season. So they were expecting to hit the ground running straight away, and I don't think that would happen, honestly.
Yeah.
Castellanos, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, they've started the transfer window fast. They've got 2 players brought in as well. Pepe's been brought in as well. So they're not hanging around. There's again linked to a couple of more players already. So they're looking at that gap between us and them, that 7 point gap, and looking to try and get that closed as quick as possible. They've got, I would say, a more winnable run of games coming up in the next 3 or 4 than maybe Leeds have. But given the form we're on at the moment right now, you wouldn't put anything past Leeds to keep picking up points. So, yeah, it is interesting. Castellanos missed a good chunk of last season, most of February, as far as into April with an injury. Then this season, he was injured in September for part of that month, and he missed half of October and most of November,
Yeah.
injured this year as well. So he's only coming back from injury. He's got 1 goal, but it's a lot of money. But I suppose he did tick the box in the type of striker Leeds have signed this season, and that kind of more target man, hard working striker than anything else. But he's gone to West Ham. We'll keep an eye on it, but fingers crossed he takes his time to find his feet. The kind of the
Yeah.
key one that has been linked to Leeds, you touched on it already, Andrea, is the centre back position. Obviously, Borneo, excellent first starting debut for him yesterday against Liverpool, but Leeds probably need another body in there if they are going to continue with the 3-man defence. They might not get a huge amount of minutes. Daniel Farke is quite slow to rotate those players. But I think the more confidence he gets in them, the more likely he is to move them around a little bit and rest them. Danilo Doki is probably the most credible one that's come forward, and that's not 100% credible. It does come from Zinni Boswell and Lyle Thomas and Sky. They have a decent track record when it comes to Leeds. Zinni Boswell in the summer was very much on the money when it came to Leeds deals, but he ticks a lot of boxes from Leeds' recruitment plan during the summer. Leeds had a very clear strategy, I'll put it that way, and it was 6 months left on their contract, over 6 foot in height, and in and around 27, 28 years of age. If you look at Danilo Doki at Union Berlin, he's a goal scoring centre half. He scored twice against Bayern Munich this year. He's 27 years of age, 6'1", and he's got 6 months left on his contract. And he's a right-sided centre back as well. So he does tick a lot of boxes, and apparently Leeds looked at him before. Now, that again is not from a very credible source, but they did have a look at him before. What are your thoughts on Danilo Doki? Obviously, he'll know Brendan Aronson a little bit, so if they need to sell the club to him a little bit, no doubt Brendan will pick up the phone. But what are your thoughts on Danilo Doki? Does he fit what Leeds are looking for? Would he adapt quite well to the Premier League? Because Leeds have said they can't have players that will take time to adjust.
No, I think that would be a very good signing. Honestly, I think the Bundesliga is the most similar league among the top 5 leagues. Serie A, La Liga, Liga 1, Bundesliga, and the Premier League. Of course, I think the most similar one compared to the Premier League is the Bundesliga. Of course, there's different examples, like Robin Koch is doing great in the Bundesliga, but struggled in the Premier League at times. But there are other players, like more physical ones. I think Doki will adapt very fastly, compared to other players, because he ticks all the boxes. First and foremost, he's a right-footed right centre back in a back three, used to playing that way. And he also one that, of course, not comparable to Rodon, because Rodon is very fast in that sense when he progresses with the ball. Doki is more conservative, but he can do what Rodon does in terms of progressing with the ball. And he's also a good vision, good technique. He does a lot of passes, switching the side from the right side of the defense to the left winger of Union Berlin. You already know, as you mentioned, Brendan Aronson and also Pascal Strauch, because they were together in the Ajax under-19 group with Noya Lang, Matthijs de Ligt, all these kind of players, But yeah, I think, they have one of the greatest youth setups in Europe for a reason, But yeah, I think it will be a sensible signing, because I think you will gain a player ready to be in the side straight away, if needed, especially under an emergency, and a profile that we really need to continue to play in the way that we want to play. Because of course you have Strauch and Rodon that, for me, can be classified as wide backs, because they are the ball playing defenders. They contribute a lot in the build-up. Strauch is like the playmaker among the three centre backs that we have when the ball gets on the left, because he can advance a little bit more, but he's usually more conservative compared to Rodon. When there's a lot of press, Rodon can progress more with the ball, can carry the ball with his speed. We've seen that against Palace the most, I think, when people called him, a winger at times, looking at his heat map. But Doki can progress with the ball. He's a tall, physical centre back, but that doesn't rule out the fact that he's also mobile. He's also versatile, I think. He can be classified as a versatile centre-back compared to Borna. Borna did very well at Liverpool, but again, I think he's a more conservative one, more defensive-minded one in a back three, because he's been used to be the be-all of the situation, before Liverpool, in that sense. And I'm really pleased that Biol is doing great in this back three, because see, when we switched to the back four at Sunderland, I remember one chance when Bogle went forward, the ball surpassed Bogle. Then he had Adingra against Biol, and Biol was too exposed, because I think he struggles. That's the reason he struggles in the back four, because he doesn't have two players covering the sides for him. And in the middle, when he's in the middle, he has the space to play to his best capabilities, art tackle, aerial duels, distributing the ball with ease. He can do that in a back four. And so I think the fact that you maybe remember when he signed, I said, he usually played in a back three at Udinese with Christensen, Thomas Christensen, and Umar Solé. I don't know how we will adapt in a back four, despite him playing in a back four for Slovenia. Now they've changed the manager too
They've
because he
changed to
didn't get
three, yeah.
some. Yeah, Matthias Schek, he was sacked because he didn't got qualified for the World Cup and had a very bad run of results recently. But yeah, I will be very pleased with Doki because he's experienced too, 27.
Yep.
He's edging towards the peak of his career, so I think it will be a sensible move and also one that can bring some depth finally at the centre back position because we certainly need another one after Bornau.
Yeah. Just a quick note for everyone listening or watching. If you want to get more information or hear more from Andrea and Lockie do a fantastic weekly podcast that's over on Lockie Leeds channel. I listen to it when I'm going to the gym. It's a longer podcast, but it's loaded with details. So if you're into your detailed stuff, I would highly recommend going over and checking that out. I'll link their last one down below in the description for everybody to go and follow that as well, because it's an excellent podcast. No problem. I love the detail. Two of my favorite people to listen to talking about football when they get into the weeds on it. And I like hanging around in the weeds on football. So yeah, go check them out. It's over on Lockie Leeds YouTube channel. But I'll link it all down below. Andre, the next one I'm supposed to talk about is the one that's just two that have kind of been floating around for quite a while. Harry Wilson is the one that won't go away. Troy Parrott's there as well. We'll get to Parrott in a minute, because I know you follow Irish football as much as you follow Italian football from the text that we have. But Harry Wilson's an interesting one because obviously Leeds tried to sign him at the back end of the summer transfer window for in and around 7 million, depending on what you read. They didn't get it done. Harry Wilson spoke himself recently where he said that he was in the dark as much as we were. It was on, then it was off, then it was on again, then it was off again. And he made a very interesting comment because right now there's a new contract on the table for Harry Wilson. He's having a fantastic season of his life. This is what I get for calling players average. They always tend to have a great season after I say that about them. Adamita, Glenn Kamara, I'll leave it at that. But he's having probably the season of his life. Plays on that right-hand side, is a left footer, ticks that box what Faraka wants to have, especially if he tries to adapt to that 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 mid-game. He hasn't signed a new deal at Fulham, and the interesting quote from him was, wherever I'm playing football, I just need to be playing, which doesn't suggest that he's staying put at Fulham right now, and he's definitely keeping his options open. I think David Ornstein at The Athletic said that he's more than likely to see his contract out of Fulham and then maximise his opportunities in the summer. Do you think that that's still possibly one Leeds would look at? Again, according to Sky, Leeds are very interested in him still. You would imagine that would be the case considering they tried to buy him at the end of the window and didn't get anybody else. And could Leeds tempt, I suppose, Fulham a little bit with some money in January rather than them risking losing him for nothing in the summer?
Well, it seems like we target Welsh wingers,
Yep.
usually, and those transfers drag on year after year, like it happened with Dan James, with that saga. I really like the player, honestly. Harry Wilson it's been their new Bale, recently in the run of form with Wales, and especially in that game against North Macedonia. Hopefully, it doesn't turn up if Italy qualify for the final, and we meet Wales if that happens. But first and foremost, we have to beat Northern Ireland in the semi-final. But yeah, I really like the player. The problem is that reading his quote, whatever I'm playing, I want to be playing. The problem is that we're playing with that 3-5-2 now. So where do you put him right now?
Play?
Yeah. Either you took a midfielder out and you play with a midfield duo and you play like a 3-4-2-1 with Okafor on the left and Harry Wilson on the right and Calvert-Lewin up top. Otherwise, it won't be starting in a 3-5-2 because the other suggestions should be, but it will be adapting the player. And we will be very unbalanced. We'll be left wing back or right wing back. And like you mentioned with Locke, we'll talk recently about the situation with some players like specifically Dan James, Jack Harrison. There's some players that don't fit into a 3-5-2. For example, Wilfried Gnonto, he played as a second striker for Italy under 21, so he can fit in that position for Okafor if needed. But there's other players like Harrison. I think the future for Harrison is left wing back, but eventually not in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And we cannot afford to have him adapting at this rate, and he's not even in our current plans apparently because he's barely playing this season. Another one is Dan James. He's proven to be consistent when called upon, but again, in a 3-5-2, the only way you see him is as a right wing back, and he's not a physical player, and that's the problem. And his defensive work rate is insane because we know that he can press, he can really sacrifice for the team. But the Championship is one thing, the Premier League is another one. It's a different beast. And a right wing back, you need players like Bogle and Justin, players that can get forward like Bogle and a more balanced one like Justin. Harry Wilson will be perfect in a 4-3-3, for example. He's even played in the middle. I remember him at Derby County when we faced them, even with Wales. They have a lot of options up front. Dan James, David Brooks, Harry Wilson, Wes Burns, all these players, they can interchange a lot. I really like the player, honestly. The problem is that if we decide to switch to consistently to 3-5-2, it's good to still have some opportunities and some alternatives. I criticized Underwood after the window ended because, in my point of view, we were built for 4-3-3, unfortunately. And we had players that eventually were more fitted for 3-5-2. The problem is now that we found ourselves in our best formation, 3-5-2, with a lot of wingers on the bench that don't fit the system. Like Gnonto didn't play. Dan James, now he's recovered, of course, but didn't play. Jack Harrison is barely playing. We have a lot of players that fit the 4-3-3, but don't have a place in 3-5-2. And also Joel Pirori is another talking point, I think. But I think we should prioritize if we want to follow that trail, of 3-5-2 is the way. We should prioritize to, if we're operating on a limited budget because of PSR, loans, these that kind of stuff, we should prioritize positions where we need depth for a 3-5-2, honestly. But yeah, honestly, Aronson now seems has found a new role, operating in a free role. It's very difficult for others to see that. Like Dan James is a very one-way player, he's a winger, natural attacking winger. Yeah, very direct. Gnonto can be utilized, he's more versatile compared to others. Jack Harrison is very similar to Dan James, very direct in that sense, even less direct than Dan James. I would be very happy with Harry Wilson because he's versatile, he's consistent. The problem is, apart from that, is that I think he can aim for clubs that can offer him more money than us, for example. And that would be a mistake on his side for me, like what happened with Facundo Buonanotte, for example. I think Nottingham Forest can tempt, for example, the likes of Nottingham Forest can tempt Harry Wilson. Other teams in mid-table, for example, Brighton, can tempt Harry Wilson, honestly. He can be a good, versatile, all-around player, rotation player for them. At least he will be a starter if we play with a back four. The problem is that we are edging towards a consistent back 3-5-2, so where does he play in a 3-5-2? That's my worry, Either we change and took a midfielder out, otherwise he won't start in a 3-5-2,
Yeah, does he play in that role where Brendan Aronson's been playing in recently and kind of tuck in a little bit, give him that kind of space to operate behind the striker and play off and link the play? Tanaka did it very well against Chelsea in kind of the more advanced role. So I think Daniel Farke wants options. It'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. But the name keeps coming up. Moving on to strikers, Andrea, there's been two linked with Leeds. A lot of talk over the last couple of months has been that Leeds will try and target an additional striker. And Daniel Farke, again, in his press conference last week, was very cleverly asked. He was asked an initial question about the transfer window, and he said, we'll talk about it in 10 days or after Derby. And then somebody asked him a second question at the end of the interview, which was very, very cleverly done, of, does the change information alter your transfer plans for January? Which was a very clever way of getting around the obvious answer. And he said, yeah, it kind of does, because if you're playing with a back two, you don't need as many centre-backs as you do if you're playing with a back three, which ticks the box of maybe a Denil Doki coming in because you need another centre-half. And he said if you're playing with a 4-3-3, you need one striker with a backup. You probably don't need as many strikers, but if you're playing with two up top, then you do. Leeds have operated with a 2 and 3-5-2. So again, that opens up the door. Talk of Harry Gray going out on loan. Joe Pirro potentially going to Coventry, or there's interest in the Championship in him. So it leaves the door open for a similar type of striker to what Leeds have got right now. Or, to your point about Wilfried Gnonto a minute ago, a second striker who can play off of one of the big men. Troy Parrott's name continually comes up for Leeds since the summer. It's been constantly mentioned. The Daily Mail have said there's interest. The Athletic said there was interest. The Daily Mail came out again today and said Leeds have legitimate interest in him. But as at Alkmaar want £26 million. Leeds have said they will not be paying tens of millions of pounds for any player in this window. So that means straight off the bat, a purchase straight away seems off the table. But the Daily Mail say Leeds are trying to do a deal where they can get a loan for Troy Parrott with an option or an obligation at the end of the season. Now, he would not be a central striker on his own. He would very much fall back into the Joe Peru category of he's not going to hold the ball up, he's not going to win headers, he's not that kind of player. But he could operate quite well as a second striker, or even in that double 10 that we played against Crystal Palace, where Brendan Aronson and Noah Okafor played him behind the striker. I know you follow an awful lot of Irish football as well. Parrott's had a phenomenal season at Alkmaar. He's had an amazing season for Ireland as well. His stock is the highest it's ever been. Do you see him as an option for Leeds, assuming a loan can be done because a purchase isn't going to happen, and how he fits into that current Leeds system?
Well, I like the player, obviously. I think we talked one of the scouting reports 2 years ago when he moved that summer. He moved from Excelsior, I think it was one of the clubs at in Rotterdam, to of course AZ Alkmaar. The problem is that I think 26 million is very high, honestly, for a player playing in the Eredivisie. I know that he's a national hero now in Ireland, but I'm sorry to say, they even wanted to name the airport in Dublin after him.
There was a mock-up of Tri-Parrot International Airport, in Dublin.
I've seen that. When he returned from his holidays, the airport account stopped him, and he said the hero, the namesake of the airport is back in Ireland. But yeah, I like the player. I think he's very versatile. It would be absolutely a good option beside Noah Okafor in the pecking order and bringing depth, in the second striker position. Of course, I don't see him as a main number 9. Honestly, I see him as a second striker. And like you pointed out, I think it can also be a good option if we're changing with a back 4 in game as a winger, like what happened with Mecha at Sunderland. When he first brought on Mecha as a left winger, and then minutes later, he took Farke took off and put Mecha up front. So I think it will be a good signing. The problem is that the structure of the deal. It will fit our system in both formations, 3-5-2 and 4-3-3. The money is too high if they're asking 26 million, honestly. But the problem is that I don't think they will even settle for a loan as at Alkmaar, because if they settle for a loan, they will settle for a loan with an obligation to buy. And what if it doesn't work for him during the loan period in the Premier League? Like what happened with, for example, or Leeds go down, and you will have to pay 26 million, for a player that it hasn't worked out for him. One good example for me is Elder Cost. His contribution was immense in that season in the Championship. Then we had to pay 17 million. In the Premier League, I think he was right in the first season. But then, of course, in retrospective, that 17 million was way too high compared to the contribution that he made in the Premier League in that season. But I will like the player, honestly. I will like him. There's tons of player, that will fit there. Another one I think can be for the forwards, Gonzalo Garcia as a loan option from Real Madrid, because he's not playing much compared to the Club World Cup, of course. But again, the problem with loans is that.
What about Jimenez at AC Milan? Because he's been linked with a possible loan move away from them, Santiago Jimenez.
Yeah, AC Milan, they've just signed Niklas Füllkrug, so I think that will happen because there's rumors about the move from Saudi for Christopher Nkunku, the former Chelsea player. So I think they will bring in another one if Nkunku leaves, because he has injury problems. Had some good sparks, but consistently didn't do what AC Milan expecting for him. But the problem with AC Milan is that they have Santiago Jimenez, another one that is rumored with a move away. But another injury-prone player has been out for the majority of the first part of the season. So they've been playing with a front two with Leao, Pulisic, Nkunku. Those players utilized as false nines, and for me, it's mind-boggling that in 2026 a club can play without a physical number 9. But about the physical number 9, we have DCL, a threat with aerial duels, aerial balls, and a match on all the players. So the target should be finding a club for Joel Pirot for me. because I think he's barely playing. He's on the fringes of the squad. When he's played, he struggled, honestly, to leave a mark in a game. It happened in the Championship. This is a different beast, the Premier League. He will have interest in the Championship or even in the Eredivisie, that can be also a good one, honestly. What I just said,
Yeah.
Joel Pirot to AZ, Troy Parrott to Leeds,
Yeah.
in that sense, because we spent how much did we spend 2 years ago? Around 20?
10,
Was it around
10 million
10?
plus
Yeah.
additional stuff depending on bonuses. Yeah, so up to about 13 million, I think.
Yeah, 13. So that price has risen, because he had 2 very good seasons in the Championship. Now he's a Premier League player. But that would mean, lowering, of course, the return. But a swap deal, honestly, can be beneficial to both of us in that sense, because I think Parrot is more suited to the Premier League for his versatility. Pirot, I can only see him as a second striker in this side, honestly. Because not as a 9. We've seen that against Everton in the first game. We kept throwing the long ball to him, and he was absolutely battered by James Tarkowski and Michael Keane in that game. So I think we need to find a solution for Pirot, even a long move, because he will have plenty of shooters. He has when he signed, he still has as years on his contract. So maybe a long move will be beneficial in that sense. In order to maybe maximize at the end of the season if he has a good long spell. But yeah, I think Championship and Eredivisie are the 2 good targets for Joel Pirot. And maybe if he goes to the Eredivisie, even as that, as I mentioned, it surely will open a door for another second striker coming in, and one more similar to Noah Okafor, because we need one more similar to Noah Okafor, a more versatile one. Pirot is not very versatile, It's not very versatile for me.
No, he doesn't have the pressing strength. Unfortunately, he doesn't. I mean, again, if you go back and pick at what Daniel Farkas said recently, he was asked about Joe Pirot, and he likes him, best finisher in the club, but he said that sometimes he struggles for speed and physicality. And then in that press conference, Daniel Farkas was asked about what kind of attributes he does look for players coming into the squad, and he said speed and versatility. So, I mean, straight away, our physicality. So straight away, you kind of went, well, Joel's not ticking the boxes for him, so we need to get somebody else in that position. You've talked about Jack Harrison possibly going out. We've talked about Joel Pirot as well. One that comes up in every single transfer window is Willie Gnonto, consistently linked with moves away from the club. My wife, to her credit, Jess, said it a couple of weeks ago. I think she's bang on the money. Willie Gnonto suits the Premier League more than he suits the Championship. He's looked better in the Premier League than he did during the Championship. And maybe that's because of how Premier League sides operate. They're not sitting back all the time. He's been linked again. Tuto Mercato keep pushing their stories saying Juventus, that they're very interested in bringing Willie Gnonto. He's not playing a huge amount for Leeds right now, but when he has come on for Leeds, he's definitely made an impact in the games that he's played. And where do you sit on Willie Gnonto? And you're in Italy, you're a journalist. You a bit more of an understanding of what is credible in Italy and what's not credible in Italy. Where do you sit with Willie Gnonto's future? Because you've said as well, he's played as a second striker for the under-21s for the national side. Very well there as well. Leeds initially bought him as a striker. So what happens with Willie Gnonto this January? Is it just likely to be more talk about him, or do we think it's actually something serious could happen this time with interest from Italy?
I don't think there's something very serious, to be fair, honestly, because I've talked about this many times. Honestly, Willie Gnonto is more rated in the UK than he is in Italy. He's very talked about in Italy, honestly. To be fair, they really don't rate him. Even the fact that he's playing in the Premier League, you see another player, Michael Kayode from Brentford, he's having a great season. He hasn't even been named in the last Italy squad, for example. That's the thing, some players go under the radar, but right now, talking about Italy, he has tons of players ahead of him in the pecking order. Zaccagni, the players that play in Serie A, for example, Zaniolo is having a good season on Udinese. There's talks about a new call-up. Years after the last one. So the problem is press one for me, because the press, of course, puts the spotlight on players that are playing in Serie A compared to others playing abroad. For example, another good player is over 30, of course, Vincenzo Grifo from Freiburg. He hasn't been called up in years, but he's having a good season after a good season every year consistently in the Bundesliga, but he hasn't been called up recently. I think in 3 years' time, it's been 3 years since his last call up, I'm talking about Gnonto. I think it's more for example, Tutto Mercato. In that case, I think it's more like testing the waters. Maybe it's just like you mentioned Danny Damaso. I think
Yeah.
it can be classified as agent talk in some sense. Because Juventus, for example, they have Francisco Conceição, Kenan Yildiz, Vasily Adzic. They
Yeah,
have
they've got
plenty of
options.
wingers. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have a lot of and Openda and David can play as wingers too. So they are absolutely stacked in that department. And honestly, when I say he's not rated, I think he will suit teams in mid-table in Serie A, because I think, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Juris, it suits more the Premier League than the Championship. And in terms of physicality, I think Serie A is more comparable to the Championship in that
Yeah.
sense. The Premier League has more intensity. The Championship is more physical because there's less talent, less technique, in every team, of course. There's tons of talent in the Championship coming up, but of course, not every team has tons of talent. You still have those EFL journeymen,
Yeah.
that bring that tough part of the game, So in Serie A, I really don't see a place for him, honestly, to be fair. He should stay abroad. And he should stay at Leeds, honestly, because I think he's still in the picture. It can be
Yeah.
useful in the 3-5-2. When he can, and even in the 4-3-3, I still think his best position is from the left, because he can
Mm.
turn inside with his preferred right foot, like he did, because we are gonna play Man United on Sunday, like he did at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
3 years ago now. I need to adjust with the new year. 3 years ago, at Old Trafford, But yeah, he's useful. He's still useful. I think as a winger in a 4-3-3 and as a second striker, we should keep him, honestly.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a talk for next summer, but
Yeah.
I don't think any Italian club will bring for him, because especially looking at the last time when Everton came knocking, on the door, we asked 20 million, I think it was, between 20 and millions, that summer. So no chance an Italian club spends that money for Wilfried Gnonto, because again, it's not rated here. And one thing that I don't like is that a part of the Italian fan base is like a scapegoat. When the
Yeah.
national team is going badly, is used as an example. Like, look at the other teams. They have ranked players. Argentina, Nico Paz, Spain, Lamine Yamal, and we have Willy Gnonto years ago. Like, they're talking like it was he was granted a call up by a miracle.
Yeah.
It's really I don't like it, honestly. It's really unfair on the player, because he's an hard worker
Yeah.
anyway. He works hard, but he's unfairly criticized, and always they cross the line. And when they cross the line, I mean racism.
Yeah.
And it's not called out, and I really don't like that, because I've seen some unspeakable tweets in the past that sometimes resurface on Italian Twitter, and I really don't like that, honestly.
Yeah, I think he's probably better staying away from that for now anyway, at least until he gets
Mm.
himself to the more experienced years in his career where he can handle that kind of stuff, or he's more established at that point. He's got a bit of work. And I personally, again, I agree with my wife, Jess, on this. I think he's looked really good for Leeds when he has played. As soon as he gets the fitness up to levels, it gets more minutes under his belt in the second half of the season. I think he'll have make his mark again for
Yeah.
Leeds this season. So
The
I've
assist
no
on
doubt.
DCL, that was great. That assist on
Oh, it's
DCL.
great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
I mean,
one.
he's because he can do that on the right. If they want a more direct, orthodox right winger, he can go to the line and put crosses in if they need somebody on the left to cut inside and give Daniel Farke that inverted winger that he likes to play with. Then he can operate on the left. And again, he started his career as a striker. He's played as a second striker. He can play in behind as well. So he's versatile across that front four positions. So he's a useful asset for Leeds to keep in the pocket for now. Anyway, we'll see where we go. Andrea, thank you for this. Really appreciate you coming on and having a chat
Thanks
with
to
us
you,
this
man.
week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same
yeah.
for me.
It's
Same for me.
always nice. Again, you can check out Andrea and Lockie over on Lockie Leeds. They've got a fantastic podcast that goes out every week. It's get a cup of tea, sit down, relax, enjoy the chat about football, because the detail is excellent and it's something that I really, really enjoy. So please do go and check it out. It will be linked down below. Andrea, anything else going on with you that you want to give us before we wrap up today?
Well, no, we will try to adapt that podcast, Unfiltered Football Podcast. Honestly, we'll try to bring something new too, because of course, recently we've been talking a lot about Leeds, but
Yeah.
as I'm sure you've seen, in the past, we'll try also to cover that side, of probably, because of course, Lucky now is working as a scout and as a coach. I still continuing with my involvement in journalism, especially as a TV pundit here locally in Italy. So we'll try to bring that side too, and maybe we'll bring something new in terms of a different perspective in terms of topics that don't concern probably Leeds, but to try to bring back something in that category, in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's again, as I say, it's a worthwhile listen to the lads know their stuff. And again, if you want a different type of an outlook on football, there's lots of different fan channels that all offer something else in the space. And again, Andrea's background in journalism, Lockie's background in sports analytics, scouting, and in coaching as well. It's very worthwhile getting a fully rounded opinion across all the different spectrums of football. So massive thanks again to Andrea for joining us today,
man.
folks. If you could stick a like on the video on your way out the door, that would be massively appreciated. If you're listening on audio, if you give us a star rating, that would be great. Aside of that, we'll be back over the weekend for the watch along and the match reaction for the Manchester United game. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you soon. See you later.